Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. So there's been a video that I said would be released last week that has actually been sitting on YouTube, uploaded, just needs a description and a title. That's my, finale for the Crafting and Gathering restart. Man, did I get sucked into Phantasy Star Online 2 way too hard. And to be clear, I'm not somebody who was like crazy, like going nuts for it, like, oh my god, I can't wait, it's finally here. I went into it with kind of a tame, like, yeah, I was excited 7 years ago, but you know, now I'm just like, I'll enjoy it, like, I don't doubt that, but I'm not like, but it's also consumed like 70 hours of my life since it came out on Wednesday. So yeah, in fact, it's even open right now. If I were to swap scenes, you can see that while I'm recording this, I'm not out of the game. So well, I'm not looking at it. Don't worry. You have my full attention for the next 30 to 50 minutes, depending on how long that takes. I will get that video out. We do have State of the Realm, of course, this week. We have our, not our final, but we have our next, podcast appreciation month. We're going to have Frosty on from Mog Talk, someone who we've had on the show before, just to go over some of the recent tidbits that have been coming out, as well as how he's been doing, any plans he has for the show in the future, the way the podcast shows have been going for the last little bit of time. But right now we've got Q&As to get to. There's an urgent question, an hour and 20 minutes, so let's get to it. Sorry, it's the truth. But anyway, we have our patrons to thank, though, before we go any further. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to lie, I've barely looked at my email or Discord or like anything over the past week. I'm pretty sure, yes, somebody went from Elite to Premium. That would be Yui Kasai. So thank you for your upgrade over on Patreon, and thank you again. I'm going to try to make sure I remember that the names on this list are actually properly updated, because I've been calling the names of the people who are new, who I keep forgetting to add. But that's not really adequate, because if you're supporting over on Patreon, you deserve to have your name here. And also, speaking of which, our Patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni. Thank you to both of you, and hope everyone is safe and healthy and just doing good. There's a lot going on in the world right now, so I just hope everyone's doing good. Let's keep this a little more positive, though, and move on to some questions. Number one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hope you're having a good weekend. It's been all right, but I'm not going to get into that all too much. It's been a hell of a weekend for me. My question is, if you could redesign one current job, which would you pick and what would you do it? And why would it be Monk? Kidding, but also serious. You know, when I went to college with basically for an IT degree and a minor in game design, because I wanted to just study some degree of game design. Those were my favorite courses always, but I was really more focused on like level design when I was doing it there. Level and character design, even, or character balancing, because we were mostly focusing on RPGs on any of the projects that I worked on. That being said, I don't really think I'm qualified to redesign a job in 2 minutes on a YouTube video. I think there's a lot of reasonable things out there that you could do to almost any of the jobs. Like it can even be down to something as simple as, I still don't like dancers improv. I really wish improv didn't scale based on the number of people that were around you, because it just kind of makes it a really awkward skill. It pretty much narrows the use of the skill down a lot, and makes it so if you have one person dead, you're not in a full 8-man party. There's all these like consequences for using it that just make it seem really like out of place. But Monk, honestly, I think Monk has kind of coasted on that we were perfect, and they just want to keep adding to perfect, and it's actually chipping away at perfect. I think they've hit that. Black Mage kind of is at that point right now, but they haven't chipped away at it. I think it's finally hit its perfect point at level 80. Monk hit it probably at 60, and then at 70 it was a give and take, and then 70 with the double tornado kick. While it may not necessarily have been what they wanted us to do, it was no doubt probably the most exciting and diverse Monk has ever been. You could have 2 or 3 different openers and general playstyles and all be within like 100 or 200 points of each other at the tippy top of play. And that's really good for people of various skill levels. So it gives them a lot of different things to aspire to, but it's just gone so downhill since then. It's just so many rocky bumps in the road for them. And honestly, I think it would be Monk that I'd redesign, and that's really tough because there's so many core aspects of the job from old expansion balancing that I'd want to maintain, but you can't just go back and say, well, that's how it is now. It's just, that doesn't work. So that's probably my biggest problem, because the answer would be Monk for this question. I just don't really know how. I feel Square Enix gotten much better at job design. They have, but it's because they've started homogenizing things. Everything feels different to play, but they all achieve very much the same thing, which I think is probably the best way to balance a game if you want them to be as closely balanced. It's why people make mountains out of molehills in 14, say this job is ridiculously bad, it's unplayable. It could be like 100 points behind another job and people will say shit like that. Redesigned machinists, yeah. Which job rebuilt from the ground up? Dude, I think it's gotta be Monk. Monk is just in such a weird place. They can't do anything with it. They can't innovate with it anymore. That's my answer. Oh my god, this one's a lot of text. Let's see. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. What's going on, Haps? Long message. Oh yeah, I got that. A few weeks ago, I wrote to you about getting better, and you responded. At the time, I used sources like the balance to make myself get from gray parses to greens and blues. Since then, I've used XIV analysis to study 99 and 100 percentile gunbreaker runs to further optimize my opener. That's great. You're doing all the right things. Really happy with the progression. Super frustrated. I played for years without even knowing my DPS sucked because I had absolutely no idea. If anyone in-game told me, they could have gotten banned. I still have some way to go before I get into orange, but why is self-improvement so convoluted and hidden? I had to study a guide from a Discord channel, rely on someone to using illegal third-party... It's not illegal! It's the cops aren't going to knock at your door and be like, excuse me, we have reports of somebody using ACT on Final Fantasy 14 in there. Open up. It's not illegal. And even then, the developers, specifically Yoshipi, I should say, have come to a conclusion that it's like, just don't harass people with it. It's generally okay to use. So here's the thing. I can see where this is all going regarding toxicity, in-game parsing, and why it's such a convoluted mess. The thing is, self-improvement is almost never easy, but the biggest tool that's missing in the game is really just a DPS meter, like one that's set in the game, because that alone is enough to give you a tool. Now, I'd say that regarding the rest, regarding reading a guide over on this site versus doing that here, I'd say that's a part of games in general. The game shouldn't tell you what is the absolute best way to do everything, and then you just replicate it. People take what's there, they put it all together, it's all pieces of a puzzle, they figure out how it best fits, produce that information online, people then produce feedback, maybe find something that wasn't found the first time around. It's very much a discovery process for everyone involved, and that's kind of the big thing with learning, is you're never really done. Improving, you're never really done. Either something changes and you need to start from the ground up and then get back to the top again, or something new comes out and you have to adjust to what it is that was found. So regarding all of that, studying a guide from a Discord channel and then using a third-party software is not really all that bad, but the one thing that could improve it is having an in-game DPS meter that's at least relevant for just you, something that only you can see and something that only shows you your own numbers, which people have suggested in the past. I'm totally behind, but I also know deep down they won't do it, because then they will officially have to provide some sort of like people will be asking, send me a screenshot of your like meter or whatever it is, or just go use FFlogs because we already have the resource anyway, and people already use ACT, so even if they implemented one, it really just be for people looking to self-improve, but it would also give no one any excuse to not know what their numbers are like when recruiting for raids and stuff like that. Deep down, what we have is not perfect, and it could be improved. But when it comes to self-improvement, these things that seem sort of convoluted and hidden, as long as you want to improve on them, the resource and the information is all there. It just takes a quick Google search, a quick question on a YouTube video, and bam, you're right where you needed to be. And it worked, and it works, and it's working. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you're searching for this. I wish more people cared as much as you did about this particular topic and improving yourself, because it is actually refreshing to read a comment that reads like this. All right, this one didn't have a hashtag, and oh boy, is it not constructed. It's not super well constructed. Oh man, but we'll see if we get through it. Hey Haps, first time asker, I've been watching since 2018. Thank you for watching for these last couple of years. Hope you're doing all right. Your content certainly played a part in helping me stay sane during these times. Dude, sometimes making the content keeps me sane. Joined 14 during the tail end of Heavensward, and one of the most refreshing things I noticed between it and the game I left was the group dynamic seemed healthier. Not always vocal, but at least civil, with the sense of cohesion and cooperation that would be needed to see us through a fair bit of lower level dungeons. Only been in recent times where I've seen the degradation, like I wound up in the Labyrinth 24 man. Oh no. See, Labyrinth 24 man, maybe not the best example, because people are sick and tired of getting of it. People are bored and people are memeing in there. Maybe not the best place to actually see that. and it creates the sense that people can just zerg the content. Okay, this has caused a lot of antisocial behavior that gives me flashbacks of my time on World of Warcraft when content gets to a point that's supposedly so easy, the players become disposable to each other. Oh, 14's been like that since A Realm Reborn, man. I can tell you right now, as someone who's been doing speedruns of Amdapor Keep and all the dungeons since then, you know, that was the very first one we were speedrunning, then Wanderer's Palace, then eventually came Mythlocked, and ugh. I can tell you right now that it's always been that way. The biggest difference is you haven't been there since the beginning. I've seen this for a much longer time, and in my opinion, the longer you play a game, honestly, just the lack of mental stimulation from something new can sometimes make you see things like this. When you play Final Fantasy XIV, it's very much set how you're going to be playing the game every patch. They may release a new piece of content, it may change a rule around or two, but you know the general type of game that you're playing. That doesn't drastically change in any given patch. You're still leveling jobs in dungeons, you're doing Palace of the Dead, maybe you're trying out raiding for the first time, doing an EX Primal, doing the story. It's all still so similar that over time you start to see things like this more and more because you're being exposed to it more and more, and you're running the same activities that everyone else is running more and more. An activity like Labyrinth that's been around for so long that gives people that impression is not even necessarily the wrong impression, because it's a 24-man raid, and honestly, even the newer 24-man raids kind of work like this. You just need to actually dodge a few extra things in the later ones, and honestly, people don't even give a shit to do that most of the time, even when they know they're supposed to be doing it and are not just trying to dead brain it. They just don't do it. So there's all sorts of things. You can't just take 24-man Labyrinth and say that it gives people that sort of World of Warcraft feeling during Cataclysm and Mott, because it's not entirely the same. This is like really, really old content that has been done for 7 years. It's not like a new dungeon that's just easier and thus people treat each other as disposable. It's just people are sick of running Labyrinth of the Ancients, sick of running some of the old 24-mans, but they also want the rewards that come with Alliance Roulette. Only way to get through it is sometimes some of the points that you're listing here, either zerging through it or just being a little bit more memey or anything like that. So I don't think there's been any sort of degradation of it. You'll just see that in old content more. As someone who recently ran through A Realm Reborn during low-level stuff, I had plenty of new players who were like communicating and trying to figure things out for the first time and not understanding how a job works and like genuinely asking for advice. I still see exactly the things you're talking about, the good things. But you won't see them when you have 24 people who have done Labyrinth of the Ancients for the umpteenth time in 7 years and really just don't care anymore. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Hap, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'm good, thanks. Just leveled all my classes from 70 to 80 within a 2-week span. Dude, I took me from 5.0 to like 5.21 or some shit to do all of mine because I was not rushing that, my word. Because today is what would be opinion if there would be 24-man raid savages? No. Here's the thing. On the surface, it seems like a really good idea. 24-man difficult content or large-scale difficult content is a lot of fun. I mean, I look back to Baldesion Arsenal, which is realistically about the same, if not just slightly harder than your average 24-man. And, that's 50-something people with a permadeath situation where the only way to resurrect someone is either for them to pray they got a resurrection from the skill that they brought via their Logos actions, or for a healer to throw their life away, res the other person, and then hope that they get that one, and it's a daisy chain that goes on and on and on. 24-man savages, though, have what I like to call the people debuff, what Sly and I on State of the Realm call the people debuff, where the idea of organizing 24 competent individuals to do large hard-scale content is such an unsatisfying idea and an unfun thing to be in charge of that I would not wish it upon anybody. Now, granted, a little bit different than the normal people debuff, which is when you go into a 24-man and between 1 to 23 people, sometimes even 24 if you yourself are a little ignorant, they're terrible and ruin everything. Not even new, just terrible. It's ruined. They're just like, I guess I'll go over here and be useless, and that's it. It's people debuff. It can be really bad sometimes. Really, really bad. But I have no interest in being a part of a 24-man organized savage. And as you said, it'd be pure hell. And I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I wouldn't wish WoW 40-mans upon anyone. I wouldn't even wish WoW 20-mans on people. I swear the people who run those raids are fucking manager level people who deal with shit nonstop and have this degree of patience that I quite frankly don't understand. And even then, they end up so angry as individuals by the time they're through their 30s and into their 40s that I'm like, I wish your soul could have just been untainted by this necessity to be a leader in a sense, because I want you to have a good life. I would not wish this upon you. Next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Happy. Really hope you and your loved ones have been safe amongst this COVID-19 chaos. We've been good. Thank you. And I wish the same for you. My question is short and sweet. Alright, what are your thoughts on ACT triggers and calls for ultimate fights? Been on my mind ever since I finished up my Uwu clears. I'll probably be no different when my group begins progging Ukab. Since you've been through each ultimate, I was wondering if you thought the accomplishments are still there. So let me be clear about this. Using an ACT callout or plugin that does, you know, callouts for you is not inherently something that proves someone's is a worse player, per se. Sometimes there can be things like attention. Like they have issues like maintaining attention on multiple things. Maybe they're playing a class or a role like healer that is already so focused on DPS and healing that sometimes you just need a little bit of extra help. I am of the personal opinion, that aside, that I feel less accomplished if I have to rely on something like that. So much so that when I did Uwu prog, I didn't use ACT triggers or callouts. The other 7 people did, but I didn't. And more often than not, I was the one not dying, so I felt pretty okay about that. It only made the Titan bombs really that much more of an annoyance, but it was an easy system for that too. If 2 people had a call out, we had one, it was really simple. Basically, I had to just listen to the number of call outs, because if I was in the back, we had a rule: the person at the far back Titan bomb didn't need to call anything out, because it was just useless to clutter comms. Only the first 2 people did. So if I was the bomb in the back, I'd hear the other 2 people call, go in the back. If I was the bomb in the front, I'd hear, or if I was one of the 2 bombs in the front, the other person would call spot and I would just take the other one. And it was super easy. I also then did Uwu later. Nobody used ACT callouts, and we all just shouted real quick, front, middle, back. And that was it. It was done. And it didn't take us more than like 2 hours to get the clear in that group. That was the group that I progged Epic of Alexander with up to beta in the very last phase. So I personally feel less accomplished, but to say that somebody's less skilled because they use it, I think is incorrect. I do like when I hear certain callouts though, I go, oh, it's too much. And shit like Cactbot is on a whole nother level. Like, I don't know. I feel very strongly against the use of them. But again, some people just need that. And to say that you're not allowed to do it without like not having those things, like if you're using those things, you're not allowed to enjoy the content. That would be so stupid of me to say. It'd be ignorant to say. So all I can give you is that I don't feel as accomplished. I don't feel that level of accomplishment when I hear like crazy call outs on other things. I don't like get a sense of like, I'm not as impressed, if that makes sense. But that doesn't mean people shouldn't use them. You want to beat the content, you gotta beat the content, you know? Another one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Sup, Hap, first time asker, very long watcher 2.0. You survived as long as I have. It's glad to hear. How's it going, man? It's going alright. Hopefully it's going well for you too. I've been playing the game for a while now, and I'm a top healer in rating, as well as cleared all 3 ultimates. But outside that, I love all other aspects of the game. That is a rare statement to read, by the way. Lore, crafting, gathering, MSQ. The question is, I felt this for a while. I feel like our character is getting too strong. Yeah, we've had this discussion before. This has been a discussion since, like, Thornton in 3.0 with the way that scene actually turns out. I think that a lot of... Here's the thing. I don't really care how strong they are in the story, because the way the story is building up, it makes a little more sense than it did years ago. We don't have all the answers for that yet. But essentially, anytime we need it, we get an infusion of ether from another source, whether it was Hraesvelgr or one of the other sources. Hraesvelgr is old enough ago that I don't feel like I need a spoiler warning. But there are other... We've received ether from various other contributors that have kind of fed us into these moments where we can overcome what should be way too big of a challenge. And some challenges are just kind of... repetitive, not the right word, but the one that comes to mind. Like, oh, you know, we're going to fight Shinryu. Oh, it's another primal. Yeah, it's a primal that's, like, supposed to be this, like, really strong primal, but it's another primal. Like, we've done this before. Thornton, same deal, the primal, you know? It's just, like, sometimes the end bosses don't really match what feels like a lore power-up. I'd say really 5.0 takes it to the point where you're like, okay, you're really getting, like, out of hand now. But it doesn't even feel that out of hand because it feels like more like a perfect match, a perfect situation, like, only man for the job kind of situation. And it's not even like a solo endeavor. There's a lot of things that bring together big moments that that really they're all about you, the player, but they show that it's not all about you, that there's other people and elements in place that can really help you overcome some of these more major challenges. But I don't think we're getting too OP, as you put right here. I think that the way that it has to be told, though, definitely gives off that kind of vibe. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello and good day, Mr. Happy. Hello and good day to you, too. Been watching your video since the drop on PS4A. Glad to have you by for all these years. First time asker, so a bonus of a tube from your home of your favorite pizza place. Wait, a tube? Oh, like a delivery tube. Okay, I was like, wait, a tube of pizza? Wait, what? I was so confused. Okay, thank you. I like pizza. What software do you use to capture and display everyone for State of the Realm? So we used to use Zoom, but OBS, which is my broadcasting software, and Zoom, which was my video capture software, don't play nice anymore. I don't know why. Even with hardware acceleration turned off, it just won't do it. OBS has been a complete disaster with window capture for the last like 2 months, and it sucks. Because I have everything set up here, and the idea of setting it up again, kills me. But that's literally, we just use Discord video and I window capture everybody. That's it. Nothing fancy. So if we look great, good. Whenever Discord doesn't do great, we don't look great, though. I can promise you that. When you have a buff for damage, does the buff affect your dots if you place them before the cast? No. This is what we call snapshotting. Your dots will deal the potency with whatever buffs you had on when they were cast. When you get a buff after the fact, you then replace the dots on them and you will snapshot the new number. In the case of Bard in particular, or in the case of Summoner with Tri-Disaster, I suppose, this would happen on the cast itself. Even though you're kind of just like resetting the duration, the game considers it a reapplication of those same dots. It's why Bards often do 2 sets of dots. They'll do like put their dots up and then they'll Iron Jaws. I don't know if they still do double Iron Jaws though. The Bards used to like put their dots up, do their opener, like their buffed dots, and then they would do an Iron Jaws before the end of their opener with all the buffs to extend them as long as possible because it was a potency gain. I don't actually know if they still do that, so I won't say that, but that's what snapshotting is. It's getting all your buffs and then placing the dots on so they're at their highest potency possible. All right, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag 2 questions. I don't know why the double hashtag confused me so much. Hey, how's it going? You eating healthy? Well, I guess that's 2 questions. I guess we're done. Moving on. I'm doing great. And sort of. I mean, I eat my Freshlies like every day. Dude, you know what I've been doing for breakfast? This is not healthy, but I enjoy it a lot. I'm taking like a slice of sourdough bread, right? And I'll put like some like grated, not grated, yeah, like grated like cheddar cheese on it. I'll stick it in the toaster oven. I'll let it melt down. And then I'll put a little marinara sauce in a little dipping cup. And I'll just like rip pieces of bread off. It's like cheesy bread. It's like a little pizza funhouse for breakfast. And I love it. So no in that regard, but my Freshlies are fairly healthy, a little high in the sodium amount. But anyway, on to the real questions. When do you think we could fully max out our Grand Company rank? You already can. I know that people have said there are ranks above Captain that are technically listed. I honestly don't think they ever raise it again. They've said they'll only ever raise Grand Company rank when there's a content that they can tie to it. It's been Squadrons up till now, and Captain is a pretty high rank. I don't think they'll ever make us the Rauban of the Immortal Flames, you know what I mean? But I think they're just leaving that in there in case they ever decide to do anything. You know, just like in case they ever decide to do those roaming primals they said they were going to do 7 years ago, but they never did it. And I wouldn't hold much of an expectation on that. 2, which jobs do you think have the strongest lore to them? That's tough. I don't know all the stories well enough. I know Dark Knight and Black Mage both have very intense stories. Summoner as well. I don't know. I haven't done some of the job quests in such a long time. I feel like Black Mage is probably up there. And I also really want it to be up there because it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to say Black Mage. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. Hello. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well also. I'm someone who can very rarely catch live streams, but I absolutely love watching stream VODs. You're one of the few. I see the viewer counts on those stream VODs. They're not super high. A lot of people don't like doing that. My question is whether you'd consider uploading the VODs onto a second channel dedicated to your streaming content. As happy as I am to have the VODs on Twitch. Really? Because Twitch's VOD view is... boy. Yeah, YouTube is leagues above what Twitch provides. Yeah. So the main reason why I don't like uploading Twitch VODs directly to YouTube, and you're right in that I brought it up before, is that it's such a different style of content. I'm someone who, if I'm watching a YouTube video, and it's got the person having like follow alerts, tip alerts, sub alerts, and they're like talking to individual people that are like viewers, and maybe I don't have all the context, maybe they don't have the stream on chat. It's really weird to me. I don't enjoy watching that. So the idea of producing content that I wouldn't watch is kind of strange. It also kind of conflicts is I don't really like watching guides to things. I like figuring them out for myself, but yet I produce guides. Doesn't mean I won't watch a guide. I used to watch those fucking tanks. The whole reason I do guides is because of Tank Spot. Literally, I wasn't even playing WoW, and I was just watching Tank Spot videos on the various guides for like dungeons and raids and stuff like that. So it's not that I wouldn't watch the content, but I wouldn't pursue it like as a point of knowledge. I pursue it as a point of entertainment, which then maybe kind of ties into how you feel about this. Like, I don't find this entertaining, so I don't produce that. I don't do that. It's not something I want to say no to, because one day I may decide to do it, but I certainly know that it's not high on my priority list because it's not content that I would like. And so producing content that I wouldn't like, just, it doesn't resonate with me, if that makes sense. But I do appreciate the people who watch those VODs. And it's really easy to maintain a channel that does this, by the way. You literally, well, it has one little drawback that I could think of, but you literally just set Twitch up to be tied to the other YouTube account. You literally click export, and then as soon as it's ready, you post it. And that's it. I don't know. I'm at odds with myself. I won't say that I'm going to do it. I'll say that I'm not entirely against it, but it is not much in my interest wheelhouse, especially not right now. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Greetings, Haps. Hello. Long-time watcher, first-time asker. Welcome to get the bones of the thickest, juiciest berg. Once the bio curse is safely passed. Hey, I'll hold you to that. I got 2 questions. One presumably easy, one maybe not so much. I'll be the judge of that. First, over the years of consuming 14 content, including on your stream, I've heard mention of spin strat as a method of cheesing enemies. I think I get what it means, but could you go into detail about what it is and why it doesn't work? Spin strat is a strategy that's been in the game for a very long time, and it's an abuse of the way that the game determines when an attack will actually be executed on. So basically, when an enemy decides that it wants to target a specific person with a specific skill, it essentially face targets towards them and then performs the attack. And until it faces towards them, it can't actually perform the attack. So what you can actually do, if you do it in a very particular way, is you can just move very closely around the target and basically outrun that spinning animation for it to perform the attack. It'll still auto attack you during that time, but it essentially makes it so that that ability is queued up. The boss is trying to do it. The boss will not do the next thing it's supposed to do until you are hit by that skill. So you can lock it in its rotation until it actually gets it off. I've seen it in a ton of different locations. It's responsible for some of the Palace of the Dead soloing, and we've seen it do some other crazy things over the past several years. But I really don't know what Square Enix's stance is on it, and if they have any plan. I wonder how aware of it they are, because it pops up here and there, but it's not anything that's like a massive thing that they go into or gets abused in like endgame content. And I think until that happens, which honestly most people are not trying to do, most people are actually trying to beat the content fairly because that's what's satisfying. But until it happens like in a very recent endgame, I don't know that it's ever going to be addressed. in all honesty. Second, throughout my years of experience in pretty much all forms of PvE content, I've seen every form of limit break used in various situations, with the exception of the healer LB2. Yeah, I was just going to say, except when you accidentally use it because you think you have healer LB3. May as well have been the case, the healer LB3 generally being the go-to option when things are going sour, and LB2 seemingly expressly ignored. How might it be possibly tweaked or changed to be more appealing of an option? I don't think you need to change the healer LB2. I understand that, like, outside of 8-man content, LB2 is what you get. Tank LB2 has some degree of usefulness. We actually have seen it used in Savage content even. DPS LB2, sure, the melee LB that maybe you do a melee or a caster LB when you really need to push a phase or you know you won't get another limit break, you know, it's somewhat reasonable. But healer, if you use that, you're like, why? There's literally zero situations where you're like maybe someone's like out of mana. That could be the only thing. Maybe it's just make it give mana back if you get hit by it. That's all I could think of, in all honesty. But I also don't think you need to make the healer LB2 more useful, because it doesn't really accomplish anything. Like, still, when will it be used is the real question. And I don't think there's a situation in the game that needs a push, except maybe being out of mana. But if you fucked all that up, do you really deserve to get it all back with a healer LB2? Do you really want to see healers popping out? It's like, oh, I was out of mana, so I used it. No, I don't, personally. So I don't think you need to change it. I honestly don't. All right, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. Hope you're still doing well. Hashtag first time question. Welcome, my friend. My question is regarding to the gear system in 14. Do you think we'll ever have a non-linear system for gear and item level? Eureka did this with great success, and so did 11. Eureka did not do it with great success. Eureka had its own separate gear system that went in one direction. It basically had item level that you could use in the rest of the game, which completely fell into its own conventions, and then it had its own item level cap of 300 and had items with elemental boost. That's all it did. Yeah, they had like the couple of haste pieces, haste -3. I think it was even confusing. I think it was haste -3 on those pieces. It wasn't even haste +3. And Final Fantasy XI, I played that game for years. I don't want to even think about anything remotely as a waste of a time as Final Fantasy XI's gear system. No, it won't ever do this, and I can tell you why. Final Fantasy XI has what people call horizontal gear progression, which realistically is more like diagonal gear progression, because they do release pieces that are 100% better than the piece that came before it. The only difference between horizontal gear progression and vertical gear progression is what direction the line is facing. Here's you at level 75, vertical gear progression, item level, item level, item level, item level, item level, item level. Horizontal gear progression, different item, different item, different item, different item, different item. You still have a set you have to work through. There's still an end goal, just like there is with the vertical one. The difference being there can be multiple gearing end goals, and that's when gearing becomes more important than the content you're actually doing, which personally, I feel Final Fantasy XI's content isn't very good. As someone who's played it for the last 2 or 3 years on and off, and someone who played it for 7 years back in the day, it's all just trying to waste as much time as possible, which, to be fair, all games do that. It's literally the point. It's a form of entertainment, and if you enjoy it, you should keep enjoying it. And even if I tell you that I don't agree with you, you should still enjoy it. But there's no point in changing Final Fantasy XIV's gear progression, item level, system, anything. What I think would be successful, though, is to expand upon the idea of utilizing different forms of progression unique to different contents. Now, Eureka didn't have a very impressive gearing system, but what it does do is it creates something else that people desire, which is really what that Final Fantasy XI effect is. It's about having multiple things you desire instead of just going up one. Some people enjoy that more than the direct increase of power that comes with item level. Perfectly reasonable. It's a very common RPG thing, as a matter of fact. That being said, I think having game systems that have their own unique gearing progressions is a better idea than rewriting the core gearing progression that it has. Palace of the Dead, Heaven on High, light examples of that. It's still linear upwards gear progression, but it's just on a separate incline, I suppose. Eureka caps the item level, adds a few things here or there that have different effects or desirable specifically for that content. Because when you add things that are specifically desirable for a specific piece of content, people get another sense of gear progression, even if it's an upward one. So I think that maybe exploring that idea, maybe if they thought if they're doing like 4-man hard mode dungeons or savage dungeons as people, refer to them, or Mythic Plus, maybe if you have another gearing system where there's different effects that only work inside that style of content, even if they're linear upward or there's like a few different options, then people don't have to focus on how it affects their major raids. You've just created a new type of content with a separate gearing system, which you've already proven you've done with Eureka and will probably do again with Bozja. That, I think, is more reasonable, but 14's core system that you go from level 1 to 80, that ain't going anywhere. All right, next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. I apologize for the weird phrasing on my question last week. Oh, so this is a repeat question. Okay. I barely remember last week's question, so let's see if I remember it afterwards. My question was, what are your thoughts on a blood healer? My idea, are you training ether? Yeah, I don't do great with idea questions, to be honest. This one's talking about doing like dot management and debuff management. So I can tell you this, Final Fantasy XIV has very deliberately cut back on debuff and dot management. At most, you're looking at 1 dot and 1 debuff, if you're looking at anything even remotely close to this. Now, if you want to restrict it down to that level, fine, but you can't only have 2 abilities that determine everything else. Essentially, what you're asking is basically the healer equivalent of summoner, of Fester in particular, where if you have these things on the target, it empowers your abilities. And you know what? That is not an unreasonable way to look at it. You have to maintain some degree of offensive nature in order to access. But that's how you access your power. And to be fair, I've said that that is the #1 biggest thing that needs to change in a job in Final Fantasy XIV for it to be considered viable. It doesn't need to rewrite or create a major niche in what it's actually capable of doing. It just needs to access its power. But when I say it like that, how interesting does it sound to put basically 2 debuffs on the target and that determines how powerful your dots are? It also means in situations where there are no targets available, you're just worse. Like maybe you have 1 ability that makes it so your heals are at full power. There are plenty of situations where there are no targets or targets with very short living durations, and every global needs to be something that's carefully considered. If it's going to be anything DPS or debuff related, it needs to match the amount of time that the thing's going to be alive. If it's going to be alive for like 2 GCDs, you want to just do direct damage. You're not going to bother getting the debuff. If it's going to be alive for like, 5 to 6 GCDs, maybe one of them you could make worth it. It depends on the math and how it's done. But there's so many situations where this type of design would just suffer by virtue of the way that it accesses its power. So it's not impossible, but it would need to be something where it only affects like 3 or 4 of their abilities and everything else is the standard healer stuff. It couldn't be the core theme to everything about the job. And again, that's possible. White Mage's Lilies they have 1 single target heal, 1 AoE heal, and they have 1 damage spell that comes from using 3 of those at any given point. The rest of their stuff, thematic to White Mage. So again, not unreasonable, but you need to ask if that is really in the wheelhouse of what you mean when you're asking me this question, because that's the reality of how it would probably turn out in Final Fantasy XIV. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Happy, how you doing today? Doing good. Thanks for asking. Hope you're having a good one. I have a question about scheduled rating content releases. That was really hard for me to say. Why exactly does Square Enix wait to launch Savage at the beginning of the expansion, but then drop the story mode in Savage? Listen, you are not the only person who asked this question. I personally don't mind that much because Savage is the thing I'm most excited about anyway, so getting it as quick as possible is not that big a deal for me. That being said, I end up being like, oh, I can't wait to do the story quests. Oh, I want to watch the cutscenes on normal. Oh, I want to do the EX Primal. Oh, now I have to beat Savage and then go do the EX Primal. Everything's out of whack. I've done everything backwards. I won't be able to enjoy this. I think they should do 2 weeks all the time. That's it. That's my answer. I don't know why they do them at the same time. I don't think they should. There you go. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hey yo, how you do? How do you do? I do okay. I hope you do okay. My question today is an FF log centric one, a bit. All right. Recently, I managed to get orange parts on every fight. Hey, except for Shiva, which I got purple on. Hey, that ain't bad. That's really good. You should be happy with that. How much do you think FF logs has affected the raid scene, and for how long can the good logs of a player matter? Only within the expansion or within the current structure of the job change, I think I'd say. Judge people on an unoptimized clear for a fight and kick them from the party. Yeah, so here's the thing. FF Logs is a wonderful tool. It is a great tool for self-improvement. It's a great tool for recruitment. And it's a great tool to understand how you can improve to actually beat an encounter for the first time. It's great. And as much as I shit on the way that it's used in the community, I'm doing just that. I'm shitting on the way it's used, not what it is as a whole. For some people, it is their sole purpose to get as high of a parse as humanly possible. That is their like core thing that they want. That's fine, but it forces the way that they look at everyone else to be the means with which they judge them as an individual. Not even as a player, as a person, people will take it to that degree. So, with that in mind, that sucks. That sucks in a way I don't think needs to be described. But more so, people don't actually analyze the data. They take basically a surface level understanding of what the numbers mean. This is what a percentile is. This is what each color of percentile means. This is, this is the length of the encounter. Like they look at these things. Actually, they don't even look at the length of the encounter most of the time. But they don't actually analyze what it might mean. Again, when was this encounter actually from? What were the conditions of the kit? What were the conditions of the win? How many deaths were there? Did they have to do something different because of someone else that screwed up? There's all these elements that aren't absorbed, which is why videos are way, way better, where you could break down individual places where like GCDs could have been done differently, or like uptime was lost, or poor decision making in its entirety. But that doesn't necessarily show on FF logs. So there's all sorts of reasons, there's all sorts of ways it gets used. People will also see like the order of the DPS jobs. They'll see like, like you got your summoner, your black mage, monk up here. You got like, dancer, machinist, bard, like all down here, red mage here. And they see those like 4 or 5 on the bottom and they go, well, I'm not gonna invite those jobs to my party finder. I see jobs locked out of the party finder all the time because they're quote bad. Nothing's bad in this game. An individual ability can feel bad. None of the jobs are so bad they can't do content. I've done double ranged clears for weeks on the most recent raid tier. And there are people who are like, that's a blight upon the star. It's like, no, just play well enough to do whatever you want and you don't have to worry about it. Follow the conventions of one job of all 5 types, so that way you get all the bonuses. And then double up on one DPS job. Try not to double up on healers or tanks. And you're good, but you can bring any of the 4 jobs as long as it falls into that convention. You could do double melee, double caster, double ranged. It'll never be the problem. All that'll be the problem is the people playing those jobs, how well they do, and can they do light rampant. And if they can't do melee light rampant because they keep killing everyone, maybe put them on ranged. That's about it. So FF Logs, great tool, horribly misused. All right, doesn't look like there's too many more questions left. I skipped a few, and I'll do them in like a quick like bonus round like I did last week at the end. From hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello to you too, by the way. From March 25th to May 25th, there have been 3 $24 mounts added to the Mog Station. Seems a bit out of hand, but most of the community thinks it's okay practice because they're optional. The Spriggan mount should have been an event item. They're constantly tied to Easter, and the mount drop was the day before Easter. Was that not an old mount? No, you're right, yeah. The icing on the cake 5.25ZX doesn't even have a mount. What is your take on the overabundance and wild prices of the Mog Station? Pretty much that it's optional, and I don't care, because I don't buy anything off of there. I'll tell you the Peacock item has actually been a heavy request for a while, because that was actually made for China, and they've had it for a while. The Spriggan I forgot about, and I don't remember what the other one even was, because I don't pay attention to it. I'm not going to get mad about something that has in no way affects me. One big thing to remember is it's not the same people working on Mog Station items that are working on the game items. So there's literally a team that is specifically making items for the Mog Station. So if they finish something and they have a plan for something and they finish it, that's going to go on the Mog Station. What they don't do is they don't make an item and say, well, can we put it in the game? Or should we make it a Mog Station item? It's literally a team that from conception to execution has every intention of putting it there. And that's not going to change. And they are not like suddenly like, hey, do you want to put this in anything? It's not how it works. All right, it looks like that's going to be the last question that we actually take for this week's episode. What was one that I skipped? I know I skipped a couple of them, and I'm trying to find the ones that I was like, oh, I'll do like a quick bonus round of them. But man, I answered actually quite a lot of them. There's the eating healthy question. There's the VOD question. What's this one? With the hope of a healer job for next expansion, is there a healer you would like and a healer you wouldn't want? I'm indifferent. It's not my role. I just want the healers to be happy, and that's more important than what I think, in my personal opinion. Which is why my opinion doesn't mean anything in this case. With PS5 being backwards compatible, I think it'd be possible to play 14. I don't know, because PS3 was able to play Final Fantasy 11, even though it was the PS2 version, because it was backwards compatible. I don't know if that translates necessarily the same. I'll say it's possible, but more importantly, I'd hope for a PS5 version, you know, at some point in the future after that. Would you ever consider doing a Peaches of the Realm where people send their Peaches questions for you to discuss? I don't know if I could do a whole show on that. That sounds like a segment, like a 15-20 minute segment, not a whole show in my opinion. What's another one here? Do you think that a healer could use a resource other than MP? It's not impossible for that to happen, but I think it would be really awkward. They'd have to use MP for something. They couldn't just not use it, because then people would look at that. You know, I say that, then I think of White Mage, and I'm like, when does White Mage use MP? When do they ever not have MP? And Astro's like, I don't know, but can they give some of it to me? It's not that they couldn't do it. It's that even if they did something like Chemist or Potions, they'd still be using MP. That is a core resource for the healers, and I don't think they'd make one not use it and make the other ones use it. Is there anything else that was here? Somebody saying that my Guten Abend pronunciation wasn't that bad. I'm sure it was worse right now when I just tried to do that. I have not played Xenoblade Definitive Edition, so this question I couldn't answer. I remember it was about that one, and I just haven't done it. Another healer idea, one that uses acupuncture. They can do whatever they want. I'm not one to say yes or no. I feel like there's other questions that I skipped or I missed or I don't know. I 100% feel like there's something here that I was like, yeah, I'll get that in the end, and I don't see it, and I feel dumb. I mean, I always feel dumb, to be fair. But I don't know. I don't know. Some people correcting me about the comment last week about the Japanese and English subtitles. That's good. I'm glad that someone who has the proper answer, a couple people have commented down below. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's it. I don't have anything else. So thank you, everyone, for watching this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to ask your questions in the comment section of the video below. Thank you again to our patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross, and Kurenai. And with that, I've got 32 minutes before Darkfowls attempts to attack the Ark ship in PSO2. So I'm going to go do that. In case you're wondering, yes, I do want to do a video on PSO2. Quick first impressions, regardless of all the install issues that have been going on. I would briefly touch upon them. But I really need to just make videos in general because it's been PSO2 nonstop. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you all next week. Until then, take care.